Israel Appreciation Day. What a concept. To say that Israel is underappreciated these days is an understatement. So it's about time that an Israel Appreciation Day occurs. Today's guest, Steve Rosenberg, is part of the organizing committee of this event, and he will tell us all about it. Now, you're going to be surprised how much there is for the world to appreciate. If you can get past all the things, all the propaganda that Hamas has been putting out. Things that you use every day, tech things, things that you would really not want to lose, were all invented by Israel. Things in surgeries that Israel invented, all kinds of things. I just came back from Israel where I spent time volunteering, helping people with their trauma. And I can tell you some of the things that also need to be appreciated, but are harder to see unless you go to Israel or know Israelis, is the love that there is, the incredible sense of love and wholesomeness. The food is like, it's not like our food in America. It's like really healthy. It doesn't have gunk in it. Um, it's like you picked it out of the garden and many other things that I'm sure Steve is going to tell us. He is a principal of the team GSD, the author of the book Make Bold Things Happen, Inspirational Stories from Sports, Business, and Life, and a member of the organizing committee of Israel Appreciation Day. So, welcome to the show, Steve.
Thanks, Carol. Thanks for having me, and thanks for allowing us to talk about Israel Appreciation Day.
Yes, now I was at, oh, let me one quick thing. I didn't have a chance to ask you, what is GSD?
Well, it stands for Get Bleep Done. It is I don't want to say what the S stands for, but you get it.
Oh, I
It's
see.
a, it's a consultancy that works in the field of fighting anti-Semitism with good small not-for-profits that are really making a difference in the world because the legacy organizations in the Jewish community are not doing a good job and have not done a good job for some time now. They do certain things well, but they don't do advocacy well. They don't do fighting anti-Semitism well, and we'll just leave it at that. And by the way, to say fighting anti-Semitism is like saying we're going to fight stupidity or obesity. That we should stop saying that we're going to fight anti-Semitism because that's never going to get won. That's always going to be there. If anybody suggests that anti-Semitism is going to go away, that's a silly discussion. But we can win certain parts of the battle, and we can make behavioral change within that scope. But when people talk about fighting anti-Semitism, that's the wrong nomenclature. We should be talking about anti-Zionism, and we should be using the words Jew hatred. Anti-Semitism is beginning to be a bit sterile, in my opinion.
Well, of course, anti-Zionism, that's just a euphemism for um, Semitism.
Of course.
And so, yeah, I know what you mean. The ADL, for example, Anti-Defamation League, that used to be something we could count on that to really fight or fight against to try to stop people from being or lessen the degree of anti-Semitism. But there are some people, some moles got into that organization and are uh, somehow directing some of its work or some of its what it puts out in terms of its papers or responses in the media. It's not right.
Yeah, I don't want to call it any one specific organization, but you're not wrong with what you say. But there's a lot of good organizations that are small and nimble and entrepreneurial and do really good work in the fields of K through 12, colleges and university, and the medical profession. Something that people don't really talk a lot about. That's where we can make a real difference with some behavioral change. We've already started to see some real differences on college campuses thanks to President Trump and Secretary Bondi and Secretary Dillon and the Justice Department and Leo Terrell from the Anti-Semitism Task Force. There's real fighters and Secretary of State Rubio. And there's a lot of people that really care about these issues deeply. We have another good 3 years of this administration who are fighting tremendously on behalf of the Jewish community in this country. And we need to take advantage when and where we can. But we can't count on those legacy organizations any longer.
Yes. And yes, President Trump has done more for Jews in Israel than any other president. And, which is why it always astonishes me, like how Jews could vote for somebody else for president, or or could vote for Mondani for mayor.
That's we have. You know what Einstein's theory of insanity is, right? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Well, that defines the Jewish people for thousands of years. It's a tale as old as time. Many Jews replaced Judaism or their own beliefs with tikkun olam. They think it's our responsibility to repair the world. And I write, I talk a lot about, let somebody else repair the world for a little while because it hasn't really worked for us. Been thrown out of every country in the world. We finally have one of our own, and people want to throw us out of our own country now.
Yeah.
We've lived wonderfully in the United States for 85, 86 years, and that's starting to get challenged for some time. We've lived well in other parts of, excuse me, Eastern Europe and South America. Everything is being challenged. So enough with Tikkun Olam, enough with saving the world, and we really have to continue to pay homage to Israel. October 7th was a horrific incident by the perpetrators, by the terrorists, I should say. But it really, the blue clouds in the gray sky was it gave Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Trump the opportunity to ultimately reshape the Middle East. And Iran is not what it was. Its proxies in Hezbollah and Hamas and the Houthis are not what they once were. For years, we were scared of Hezbollah. Well, they showed that they were the paper tiger. Hamas is a nuisance. And, they're always going to continue to be a nuisance, but they've been neutralized. The Middle East is a far different place. And what we've shown through President Trump, starting back in 2018, was that the idea around two-state solutions is not something that we should be talking about. Peace through strength via the Abraham Accords, economic collaboration and cooperation with the good Sunni nations like the UAE, right? And all those other countries that came to the table. Hopefully, soon the Saudis will come to the table. That is how we build real stability in the Middle East.
Yes, absolutely. When I was just there, um, and I would have groups and individual sessions with people, um, talking about their trauma and so on. And I was there actually. It just so happened we had planned this trip for a long time, but it just so happened that it was in October, right after or right as the peace deal was being signed. And so some people, tended to say, "Oh, now you came, after the peace deal," but it was planned, long before the peace deal. And plus, but what I asked some of the people was, some of the Israelis was, um, do you think, can you feel like you can breathe a sigh of relief now, or are you waiting for the next shoe to fall? And a lot of them said, most of them said that they feel happy that the hostages were returned, and to the extent that they were, and but they are waiting for the next shoe to fall because they didn't see it as a permanent kind of peace, which is what I feel too, because there's no way Hamas is going to disarm, for example, and the reason why they agreed to the beginning of the peace plan, in my opinion, is because it allowed them to trade a relatively few number of Israeli hostages and Israeli bodies of hostages that they had for a huge number of potential Hamas terrorists to come out of the Israeli jails. So it was a win-win. Well, not win-win. It was a win for them. I mean, it was a win for Israel too, because of course, Israel wanted their hostages back. Um, but it's unfortunately it's not going to go very far. There are all these steps, and it's not going to go very much further down the steps. What do you think?
Of course not. They're terrorists. They're not a sovereign nation. You can't negotiate with terrorists.
Right.
They're called terrorists for a reason,
Yeah.
and they're never going to give up their arms. And anybody that thought they were going to was chasing fool's gold, and they'll get theirs. But it's an ideology. It's not even an army. You replace Yahya Sinwar. He gets killed and somebody else steps in. You kill that person. We keep seeing about the number two person gets killed, number three person gets killed.
Right.
There's always going to be a new number two, a new number three. And now that they emptied the prisons, there's going to be, listen, I was not for this deal. Okay. It was a terrible deal. We can't keep showing that we'll do anything and we'll do for hostages, because you know what's going to happen. They're going to keep taking hostages.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
sure, it wasn't my family, and it's easy for me to say sitting thousands of miles away here in the United States, but we have to have a hard line with these terrorists. That's who they are, and that's what they are. Ariel Sharon pulled out of Gaza in 2005 and left the Arabs. You want to talk about real estate and two-state solution, left them the most gorgeous piece of land in the Middle East, Gaza. On the Mediterranean Sea, they had water, they had everything. It was magnificent. He got vilified for that. What happened? The Palestinians immediately voted in a terrorist group, Hamas, to run the government. And within days after that, they ripped Gaza apart, took these beautiful buildings apart brick by brick, and used the material to build a tunnel system that's as large as the New York subway system, so that they could go into Israel and kill Jews. That's what they want. It's never about peace. It's
Yeah.
never about land. None of that. And the media is complicit. Also, we talk about people who are complicit. They tell the wrong stories, they lie, and they get to a place where the average person doesn't know right from wrong, good versus evil. It's a horrible, horrible situation. But you talk about Hamas, they are terrorists,
Yeah.
plain and simple, period, end of subject.
Yes, absolutely. And they have a really good PR firm, though, because they have managed to. I mean, there's Al Jazeera, but it's even bigger than that. They have managed to really convince so many people all over the world. But like, it boggles my mind. It continues to boggle my mind how people in America who are otherwise intelligent would have believed all of this garbage, these lies that they have put out. And like I mean, sometimes like when I go on different shows, if people start to talk about Israel, um, and then I think, oh well, okay, we're going to be talking about like surely they don't believe these lies, and then I find out that even people who I would have respected, you know, um, do believe the lies because
They've
it's
been
so
telling the same
convincing.
thing for decades. This has been going on for decades, not for days, not for a couple of years, for decades. And then when we started to learn about intersectionality, and we started worrying about who was oppressed and who the oppressors were, which is,
Right.
of course, complete garbage, because nobody's been more oppressed than the Jews ever in history. Okay,
Right.
and period, and hard stop. But when you start to when the leftists start to talk about that, Israel shows up as the oppressor, which of course is garbage, because you were just there. I go all the time. When you step off a plane, you go to Israel, you look around and say, hey, where's the white people? There's no white people here. The white people are the minority in Israel. And there's Arabs who are in the government. They work freely. They play on sports teams. They own businesses. And those Arabs that live in Israel, they are thrilled. They don't want change there, because they know they have a good life. They can walk into a restaurant and order a glass of water in the middle of the desert and get a glass of water, right? Israel is the worst piece of land that anybody could ever hope for in terms of resources. But these Israelis in 76 years figured out how to have a country and high tech. And you talked about it earlier, all the advances that have come out of there. But you go to Israel, nobody's being oppressed. And people talk about the settlements. This is Israel. This is not disputed territory. This is Israel, Judea and
Right.
Samaria. It's not the West Bank. It is Israel. Because
Right.
even when Jordan was in control of that land, the Palestinians still didn't have a home. Oh, and by the way, I always want to throw this in. You know who the original Palestinians were, right? The
No.
Jews.
Well, yeah.
These new Palestinians didn't come about until like the late '60s, when Arafat decided that he'd have a good needed people. But you're right, from a PR perspective, when you have the media and everybody saying, when kids in schools are being indoctrinated as early as kindergarten about Israel being a bad place, when they show maps in schools that don't have Israel on it, when
Yeah.
teachers talk about Palestine, I always said, well, show me Palestine. Show me where Palestine is on the map because I can't seem to find it. But they talk about it and they vilify Israel. So over decades, these lies have become the truth. And so they are smart. They are well funded. They are well coordinated. They have nothing but time on their hands. And that's one of the reasons that we are going to do Israel Appreciation Day, because we want people to understand we need to go on the offensive, not in the literal sense, but in the figurative sense, so that people understand all the things that we're talking about, not from a, you know, propaganda perspective, but let's learn about Startup Nation. Let's learn about the medical advances that Israel has given. Let's learn about the incredible resources. Let's learn about the, when by the way, when Hamas nicks, when Hezbollah, when terrorists get injured, you know who goes and saves them and tries to bring them back to
Yes.
life?
Magen David
Israelis.
Adom. Magen
Israelis.
David Adom. I was on the board in Los Angeles. Yes, and they take care of everybody. They even went to, excuse me, to Australia.
Yeah. Yeah.
Actually,
Sinwar had brain
Zaka.
cancer. He had
What?
brain cancer, and Israel saved him, right? Any other
I
country
couldn't
would have
hear
let
you.
that
Who had
rotten
brain
piece, you know
cancer?
what, die.
I couldn't hear that part. Who had brain cancer?
Yahya Sinwar.
Oh, yes. Uh-huh.
And they saved him. And then his repayment was leading the efforts of October 7th. But
Yes,
that's
yes,
Israel.
yes. Well, okay, and that's going to be a great segue for when we come back to talking about Israel Appreciation Day. And I do really want to get into that. So we'll take a break now. You're listening to Dr. Carol's Couch. My guest is Steve Rosenberg. He is on the organizing committee of Israel Appreciation Day, and we'll be right back. And welcome back to Dr. Carol's Couch. I'm your psychiatrist host, Dr. Carole Lieberman. And today we're talking about Israel Appreciation Day. What a concept. And my guest, Steve Rosenberg, is on the organizing committee of Israel Appreciation Day. And apparently, this new one that is coming up in February is the second one. So I would like, the first thing I want to ask you is where did the idea come from? And tell us about the first Israel Appreciation Day.
Well, our founder, Robert Chernin, had an idea and he put together an incredible group of people. These are not just Jews, they're really smart Christians who understand the difference between right and wrong and who appreciate the fact that Israel is there and keeps peace in the Middle East. And we put on an event about 18 months ago because we realized that we have to tell the truth about Israel. And we had incredible guests like Congressman Torres, like Kaya Jones, so many different people. And if you go to IsraelAppreciationDay.com, you'll see that the next event is February 11th. There will be a live, you can see it live in Las Vegas, but most of the people will see it virtually through various means and methods. And IsraelAppreciationDay.com will give you all the ways that you can buy tickets virtually. But it's some of those same people that I just mentioned, plus John Ondrasik, plus Ambassador Huckabee, plus President Herzog, plus so many more people. And they're not just all talking heads. There'll be musical performances, panel discussions, Jonathan Tobin from JNS. So many different people, Christians, I don't know if we have any Muslims or not, but people who really appreciate Jews. Forgive me, I can't think of everybody that's on the guest list, but
Sure.
all the guests today are out at IsraelAppreciationDay.com. But it's really a couple hour show that you'll feel good about this tiny little country the size of New Jersey and what it does to keep peace in the Middle East and why it is America's greatest ally over the last, 6, 7, 8 decades and why it's so important. And this is where you're going to learn the truth. And if you care to learn the truth, don't watch the 6:30 world news tonight on any of your local favorite channels because you're not going to get the truth. Don't read the New York Times. You're not going to get the truth. This is one place where I can assure you truth over fiction all day long. And so Robert Chernin had this idea, and he's put together this incredible group of people, super smart, talented individuals who are working day and night as volunteers, mind you. Nobody's getting paid here to put on this incredible event. And as you know, one event, one moment in time is fine, but we've got to keep the momentum going. And after the first one, we did some work, but not enough. So out of this will come, I should say, the Gideon Awards, the Gideon Project, where we will take this initiative and we will go into communities and we will begin an offensive at the grassroots level so that people can begin to learn about Israel and all of the good things. We'll bring speakers to communities. We'll bring little mini events, mini series. We'll do all sorts of things like you might see in a political campaign, but with no election at the end, where people will begin to see, we'll have captains in these various cities that want to take the lead on these projects and really build up the fact that this Israel is a good guy. There is no oppression going on. There is certainly no genocide, because if it's a genocide, it's a reverse genocide because there are more Arabs today than there were on October 8th.
Yes,
Fact. Fact.
yes.
Okay. By the way, there's more Jews too, but even with the 2000, but there is no genocide. And it's funny, these same people that are screaming genocide, by the way, just as a digression, Carole, aren't upset about what's going on in Sudan or Nigeria or any place where there's an actual genocide. They certainly weren't upset with what happened in Syria when hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people were killed there. Nobody complained about that. There were no college protests about any of that, right? So IsraelAppreciationDay.com, February 11th is going to be. I'm super excited. It's why I'm spending so much time talking it and helping promote it.
Yes. Well, it's great. Now, what about you were starting to say with the first one that did you did you see any impact of the first one?
You know, sure. I guess the short answer is not enough because look where we are. Like, what really? I mean, you're a pretty good expert on this topic. Like, nothing has really provided dramatic impact, right? Nothing. Particularly since October 7th. I'm talking about really moving the needle. And there's people that write, there's people that tell stories, but we need to tell better stories. You said it earlier in this conversation that the bad guys have the better PR firm, figurative PR firm, and
Right.
everybody always says to me, I bet you the number one question I get is, how come Israel isn't better at PR? And the reality is Israel doesn't care about PR. Israel cares about staying alive. Right? Golda Meir said, "We'd rather everybody hate us and be alive than be like us while we're dead." Or yeah, that's not the exact quote, but you get the gist. And the Israelis have, there's a little bit of a language barrier. When you go to Israel, I always joke, like, it's not the most hospitable place in the world because they're busy. Everybody's a soldier. Everybody's worried about, you talked about the other shoe dropping. Everybody's always on alert. Yet, and I feel like you'll agree with me on this, when I'm walking down any street in Israel, any street, I feel safer than I do in any blue city in the
Yes.
United States,
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Uh,
right? Because they have so many military advances, whether it's the Iron Dome or David's Sling or now the Arrow. There's so many ways to shoot missiles out of the air. And sure, bombs could hit, and bombs have hit, but and it's a big price to pay. But what's gone on in the diaspora, particularly if you appear Jewish, right? You have professors getting killed. You have Israeli embassy staffers getting killed outside events. You have what just happened in Australia. You have what happened at Tree of Life in Pittsburgh even before
right,
October 7th.
right.
Jews are targets. And we have to make this move. So I guess very long-windedly, I don't know that we saw enough of an impact, which is why we know that while our event's going to be great, we have to have some more lasting impact beyond just the one-day event.
Hmm. Well, I love your idea about about going into the communities. Now the just to remind me again, the first Israel Appreciation Day was after October 7th,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
Okay. Um,
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. But it was early on, and we were still
in
a lot
shock.
of, yeah, I guess. And there was still, don't forget, we had maybe a day where the world was on our side. By like October 9th, the protests were already formed. This was a lot of people talk about
Yeah.
how Hamas failed because they didn't coordinate with Hezbollah and Iran, and the attacks didn't come from the north and the south at the same time,
Yeah.
because that would have been devastating to Israel. But they were coordinated with boots on the ground across the world.
Yeah.
And from the college protests to protests in places like, England and France and major cities in Eastern Europe, that Jews have suffered both, physically, both mentally, in every possible way. So there was that coordinated effort. And they, like I said, they have very well coordinated here. They have one playbook, whereas the Jewish community is very discombobulated, very disorganized, very dysfunctional. I wrote a piece a few weeks ago about the fallacy of the idea of Jewish peoplehood. It's a nice idea,
Fallacy
but
of the Jewish what?
peoplehood. We're not a peoplehood. People
Peoplehood.
talk about it. The Reform Jews don't talk to the Orthodox. The Orthodox
Uh-huh.
talk to the conservative. This one doesn't like that one. Orthodox shuls, the men and the women can't be together. We're just not organized, right? At the end of the day, we even after October 7th, we're still fighting with each other. I always say, like, if the bad guys were smart, they wouldn't do anything. Sit back and wait. And we'll eat. It was happening in Israel beforehand that we were eating our own, and it's going to happen here eventually.
Um, I know what you're saying. You probably watched this too. I just happened on it, but it was amazing. Um, the video of Netanyahu, and yes, that's an example of one of the ways that Jewish people don't agree with each other. There are like half the people, or I don't know the percentages exactly, but I know that there are people who are so anti-Netanyahu, and then there are people who are so much for him. I happen to be for him, and I saw this really great video where he was holding a press conference, I think, where he had a map and he talked about the history, how all the different people, leaders before him, gave away the different pieces of Israel, for peace. If that only if you give away this part of Israel, you'll have peace. And he was saying, no, I'm not going to keep. We can't keep doing this. It doesn't work, which is why the two-state solution wouldn't work. But he just explained it so beautifully, and I wish, if that would be something actually. I don't know if you've thought of it or if you want to do it, but that would be something that might be really good to include in the Israel Appreciation Day because it was relatively short. I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 minutes, perhaps. But it really puts everything in great perspective.
Yeah, you're right. It's a good idea. I'm sure the producers are watching now, so I'm sure they already heard it.
Um, well, so I just want to tell you also this one moment in Israel that really struck me. If you look at Israel from the sky, you wouldn't necessarily know that anything happened on October 7th. Like
Right.
people seem to be going about their business, they're happy. Well, I don't know about well, they're actually traumatized since I've been helping them with their trauma, so I know deep down they're traumatized. However, they go about their business, they go about their work, they go about their families and loving and going to temple and all of that stuff that they were doing before. Um, but
But
one
deep down,
day,
they are. You're a therapist, right? Like
yes,
I always say, at the 30,000 foot level, if you're looking down, it looks like nothing happened. But if
right.
you really look close,
Right. Because they talk about it. Some of them are more willing to talk about it than others. One of the places that we went was Zaka, the men who take the pieces of the bodies and try to identify them.
yep.
Um, but anyhow, what was I going to say? So one day, I was sitting at a table having lunch with someone, a friend, and it was a street where there were no cars in the middle. It was just two sides were filled with restaurants, and then the seats from the restaurants were in the middle of the street. And everybody, if you looked at that, everybody's eating and smiling and talking and laughing. And then all of a sudden there was a siren and everything stopped. Like mid sentence, mid mouth, mid, chew. Um, and you could feel in that moment the impact of October 7th. You know, everybody, the fact that it went in a second, literally a second, to this still. Everybody was just still for like 10 seconds at least. And then of course then people went back to what they were doing. But I mean, I'm sure they were talked about the siren, but and we didn't see where the siren was coming from, whether it was an ambulance or a fire engine, or I don't know to this day. But it was the trigger that brought back the memories of October 7th.
Yeah, I mean, if you live in the Gaza envelope, which are the communities closest to Gaza, which actually border the security fence, like Sderot and Netivot and all those other communities that you read about, Nir Oz, all the kibbutzes that were attacked, those people are in different zones. Some are in the 90-second zone, which means when a siren goes off, you have 90 seconds to get to a shelter. Some are 2 minutes, some are 1 minute. And these families, some of them are the most observant of the communities. So you could be in a situation where, and they all have multiple kids, and usually they're young kids. So you could have a situation where, say, in like Netivot, which is one of the closest to the Gaza border, mom could be bathing the youngest child. Two of her other kids could be playing in the front yard, right? A siren could go off, and they have 90 seconds. Mom doesn't have time to scoop the baby up, dry it off, and then go run and find the other two kids. Those kids at the earliest ages have to be trained to get
Uh-huh.
into the nearest shelter. And mom has to just pray that when she gets to the shelter, those kids are there. And think about living like that. And these people continue to choose to live there. They farm there, they work there, they go to school there, they pray there. Israel's this big, right? It's not, it only works because these periphery towns are so successful. And so the people are so resilient. Tel Aviv can't house everybody. Jerusalem certainly can't house everybody, you know. And if you have flown over Israel, like I have in a helicopter many times, you see large swaths of underdeveloped land. It's like a real estate developer's dream,
Mm.
but they're not ready to develop that land yet. So these periphery towns are super important. But imagine you live in a community where, and by the way, those sirens go off all the time. And during the Iran war, they were going off at all times of day. So you're a therapist, your mental psyche. I couldn't imagine living like that. People are sleeping dressed, including their shoes, because every second counts. And if you have to wake up and get dressed and put your shoes on, that's could be 40 seconds of your 90 seconds. And the shelters are not, some are in your home, but sometimes they're outside the home. And we saw on October 7th that the home shelters, the bad guys were super prepared and the home shelters failed. And even the exterior shelters didn't work. So I'm sure Israel is now rethinking the whole shelter situation and what to do because the safe rooms weren't so safe.
Mm. Well, it was it's something to really get used to, the seeing the shelters. Besides, I mean, like there was a shelter there was a room on the floor in my hotel, with the signs right when you get off the elevator, with arrows where to go for the safe room. And in the streets, just like we have bus shelters, when where you wait for a bus and it's a bench with a roof over it. That they have those on the corners, as you know, of course. But people don't appreciate, talk about Israel Appreciation Day. People in America don't appreciate what that is to live where you walk down the street and there's one of these bus things, except it's not a bus thing, it's a shelter.
Right. Right. Yeah. And you don't realize that most people don't realize that. It's one thing to live, like, say, in New York City, right, where you have to get used to sirens going off all the time, or I don't know, some other community where things happen. But this is when the sirens go off there, bombs are coming. like significant bombs. And like you say, you get awoken at night. You could be in school. The good news is the schools are actually all shelters down in those communities, so the kids don't actually have to leave schools. But now imagine you're a parent and it's a school day and your kids are in school and the shelter and the bombs are going off.
Right, right.
It's an unimaginable way to live, yet these people continue to live that way. And I don't know, to me, they're heroes in a lot of ways because, like I
Yes,
say, they're farming, they're living, they're teaching, they're going to school, and they really make the whole country go. Because, like I say,
yeah.
everybody can't live on Rothschild Boulevard in Tel Aviv. It doesn't work. Doesn't
Yes,
work.
yes.
So, you know,
Well, I had been to Israel once before, um, in some years ago when my for my daughter's bas mitzvah. That was she was bas mitzvah here in Los Angeles, in Malibu at the temple that we belong to. But my mother gave us as a gift, as a bas mitzvah gift, a trip to Israel. And it was a trip, where a bas mitzvah and bar mitzvah trip, where all the kids were being bar or bas mitzvah, and it was in Masada that she was bas mitzvahed. And I mean, I remember that trip. It was amazing. Of course, that was more of a sort of a sightseeing trip too. That we went all over Israel, but as compared to my recent trip. But I don't remember at the earlier trip all as many bomb shelters and so on. Maybe they were there and I just wasn't paying attention to them because there wasn't as. Although my mother, she kept changing the date of our trip because because every time she would set a date and there would be some kind of a skirmish and she would say,
hmm,
no, we can't go then. No, no, we have to postpone it. And we ended up postponing it three times. And so my daughter had to learn three different parshas and eventually we
hmm.
went. Of course, it was amazing.
Yeah, look, it's I can't remember. I don't know the arc of, the building of shelters, but I suspect Israel got attacked the day it became a state. Back in 1948. The America called it a state, and they got attacked, and they still won that war with no weapons, no planes, no nothing. So, a lot to talk about there too.
Yes. All right. Well, we do have to take another break. Again, my guest is Steve Rosenberg. We're going to give you more information about Israel Appreciation Day. It's coming up in February 11th, correct?
Yep.
And we will talk more about it in the next segment. So stay tuned. Welcome back to Dr. Carol's Couch. I'm your psychiatrist host, Dr. Carol Lieberman. I'm very happy to have as my guest Steve Rosenberg, who is on the committee of the upcoming Israel Appreciation Day to be held in Las Vegas, but also online. And we will be giving you more information about the there's a website. Let me I had it. Would you want to give the website, Steve?
Yeah, it's IsraelAppreciationDay.com,
Yes.
and it gives you all the speakers. It shows you how to buy tickets. If you're online and you know who Samantha Edis is, she'll be there. Shabbos Kestenbaum, Melissa Mayo from the Food Network, Chris Widener, an unbelievable pastor, Michael Singleton, um, Dr. Rabbi Pinkas Alush, a wonderful rabbi, Dr. Karan Skinner, a tremendous leader in the Black community, as is Michael Singleton. I mentioned Congressman Torres. I think I said John Ondrasik, singer, Kai Jones, singer, Yuval David, Sal Litvak. Sal Litvak, another unbelievable. You've probably seen him. I think he goes by the Great Jewish Comedian on Facebook and Instagram, and he tells short little Jewish jokes and super funny guy, great guy. They'll all be there. And it's a number of different performances, IsraelAppreciationDay.com. get tickets, tell your friends, watch together. If you're in the Vegas area, show up live. And to be there live is going to be really remarkable because you'll see these people in an unbelievable venue. And but the virtual performance is going to be super special. Really, there's really nothing like it that's taken place around the positivity for Israel. Like in another world, in another lifetime, you might have seen something like this, on one of the networks, right? Back in the day when they used to do these types of variety type show specials, but not today, not on Israel. And
Right.
that's a shame.
Right.
But thank God for the internet.
Now, here's a question that, is sort of an obvious question, that some people are probably thinking in terms of at least going there. You're going to have, I mean, this is like a terrorist dream, you know, he could get rid of a lot of Israelis in one fell swoop. And what are you going to be doing? Don't give me the secrets, but I mean, what in general are you going to be doing for security?
Yeah, have heavy security. Fortunately, Las Vegas and the state of Nevada are friends. Great PD there already. Working with law enforcement, not announcing the venue unless you're a ticket holder, and even then, it won't be until the night before.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of security measures in place, and these are not necessarily Israelis. They're supporters of Israel who are going to be showing up and there, but I would not be worried about being in attendance, not one bit. And these are the kinds of things that we need to show up for, because not showing up is
Yes.
when the bad guys win. After what happened in Australia a couple 10 days ago, the rest of the world was showing up to menorah lightings and all over the place, because that's what we have to do. And can't be afraid. You might walk across the street and get hit by a bus. I mean, that's just when your time comes, your time comes. And but security there'll be heavy security, good presence, marked, unmarked, all over the place. I can assure you that that's been a major topic of discussion.
Uh-huh. Okay, good. I'm glad I gave you a chance to describe that. Um, I don't know if you know, I don't know if you looked me up or anything, but since 9/11, I have become as of 9/11, I became the terrorist therapist. Did you know that? My,
Yep.
you saw my website,
Yep.
terroristtherapist.com. So I have been working on trying to, well, first of all, helping people cope with terrorism, but also trying to warn people about the terrorist plans. That first it's the Jews and Israel. Well, first it's destroying Israel, then it's the Jews, then it's all the other unbelievers in Islam. And so people here are so complacent. And even today, I mean, even today, as these terror attacks have been increasing. I mean, Europe is destroyed, especially the UK. Um, Even then, people still are really complacent about it. Part of it is the mainstream media doesn't show what's really happening in Europe. But in general, and even in Israel, they don't really show the truth about Israel either, as we were talking about. But it's really frustrating that, and particularly, you were saying about the Jews and different opinions and all that. Um, it, that's why I'm really excited about your plans. And maybe you could talk a little bit more about that for after or for generating this after this second Israel Appreciation Day.
Yeah, look, we're still developing those, because the event, as you know, takes a lot of time, but we're not going to just do one event and be done. We have to pick the cities and the communities that we're going to go into. We have to develop. We have a lot of plans developed, but it's a little premature to say, here's what we're doing and here's how we're
Sure,
doing it.
sure.
But we have some major funders that really want to participate in this initiative, because all of this takes money. But this is not we're not, quote unquote, fighting anti-Semitism like we talked about at the beginning. We're going on the offensive to educate people about the truth of what actually goes on in Israel, what you can expect to see when you go there, all the incredible technologies that have come out of there, the life-saving technologies, the camera on your cell phone, the chip that goes into your cell phone and on your computers. So much doesn't happen. It's just a matter of time before the Israelis cure cancer. Okay. And There's no question in my mind. They just last week a story came out about the major advances they made in fighting lymphoma. So they're going to get there, not because they have to, but because they can. Right? There's things that they have to do because they have to, like get water and the desalination plants that they have there, so that they can, because there's no water. It rains like 6 days a year. But again, you can walk into a restaurant and get a cup of ice, a glass of water. They water their plants. It's like you're living in any other normal city, and you're in the middle of the desert. Okay, it's 110 degrees there in July, and you can still walk in and get a glass of water. So their advances, their technological, their ingenuity, their creativity is nothing like I've ever seen before. They're 76 years old. Think about America in 1850, how
Mhm.
far where we were in 75 years compared to where Israel was after 75 years,
Now,
right?
yes. Now, of course, that's part of the reason why so many people hate us. That
I don't know, that seems like I would embrace something to embrace, not hate.
well, no, of course, but and not just Israel, but I mean, why so many people, why there's anti-Semitism? It's really a lot of Schadenfreude and a lot of jealousy, envy for what we managed to accomplish and how. I mean, I'm of course. So what can we do about it? We're not going to go back in time and not accomplish anything, and um, but I'm just saying that that's part of
It's the
part of the
craziest. You're
the,
right,
the
and
burden that we bear as God's chosen people.
it's the dumbest thing, the dumbest answer there is, and not what you said. I mean, it's of course you're right, and like I don't know if you said to me that you know I don't know, people from Singapore created all that. I wouldn't hate Singapore. I'd be like, oh my God, let's go to Singapore and embrace
Right,
those people, because thank
right,
God
right,
for them.
right.
Who cares? But the narrative around the Jews controlling the banks and the media. And by the way, if they control the media, we really suck at it. Just FYI.
Right.
But they don't control anything. They had to get involved. The Jews are the definition of when you fall down, you pick yourself up, dust yourself off, start all over again. And they don't take no. We're fighters, and there are
Right.
many ethnic groups that, by the way, are the same way. Look around this country. This country was built on America. I'm talking about on people that came here and had a dream and worked hard and fought hard. You go to other nations. There's plenty of nations that have given the world great advances and through technology and or whatever it is that they've been good at. And you know they're not hated. So the whole idea that somebody would hate a country that has been so giving, right? And technologically sharing all of their ingenuity. It's crazy. It's completely. It's about as illogical as saying, you know what? I'm not going to use this umbrella in the rain. I'm just going to get wet because that's just what's going to happen. It's like the same stupidity that
Yes.
one has to have.
Yes. And of course it is primarily because Jewish people put education as give education such an importance that of course, and also becoming successful, such an importance. Not I don't mean just making money, but I mean in various ways, volunteering, doing all kinds of things, but being successful in your own way. And so yes, of course they are going to be successful and contribute to that contributes to all of this envy that other people have. But
100%.
so I think so I mean this is I'm really welcoming this. So it's going to be for people that maybe let's go into it a little bit. So for people who are there at the hotel, I assume it's going to be a hotel. I know you don't want to tell where, that's okay. But for people who are at the site, let's put it that way, people who are at the site, what are they going to be seeing? Are they going to be going into auditoriums where there are different people speaking? Are there going to be other kinds of booths?
One venue, theater type setting, where just like you would see in any other, I'll call it a variety show. The younger people in the audience might not know what a variety show is,
Mhm.
but it's constantly moving. Singer, comedian, speaker, panel discussion, comedian, singer. Like it'll have some real good flow to it. We have wonderful producers that are
Mhm.
putting the actual show together that understand flow and timelines and how to do this type of thing, real Hollywood type producers. And you'll sit there and you'll enjoy the show. And if you're at home, hopefully you'll pull up in a nice, comfortable chair and you'll have the same experience because in today's world, the technology is great. And there's a big effort on the tech. So even if you're watching virtually, you will have the experience will not be that different than if you are live. I can assure you that.
Will you be having like, at conventions, there are booths, there's like a hallway
No,
with
no trade
people.
show, just performance. No
Okay,
trade show.
okay.
It's just a celebration, and you will learn through the arts. It's the
And
via the seven arts.
and so the good thing about this, I don't know if you did this with the first Israel Appreciation Day, but the wonderful thing about this is you'll be able to show it indefinitely, countless times.
If you go to israelappreciationday.com, you can see the sizzle reel from the first one, and you can see highlights, and you'll get a sense of what you're going to see this time. Just some different speakers, some different energy, some new surprises that we haven't even discussed. But the sizzle reel, it's about 90 seconds. It'll give you a sense of what the show's all about.
But did you use that? Did you use video from the first um Appreciation Day? Did you use
Oh
it
yeah,
other
yeah.
ways?
Go to the website, and you'll see what happened on the first one.
No, but I mean, in other words, have you put it out after the first
Oh
Israel
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Appreciation Day? Are
Always
you putting it
been
out
using it
all over the internet?
all over.
Okay.
Short form, social, direct mail, I mean, email, everywhere.
Okay.
Yep.
Because, that's of course a good way to make it last last a lot longer.
100%. 100%.
All right, we don't have that much time left. Let me just ask you, and I usually ask this at the beginning, but where were you born?
I was born in Pennsylvania.
Okay. And what made you, why are you so passionate about this?
I grew up in an era when Israel was the good guy. They still are the good guy, but you know, I grew up in the era of Moshe Dayan and Menachem Begin and Golda Meir, and Israel was the little engine that could. And I watched Israel form peace with Egypt, with Jordan. I watched Israel overcome a lot of adversity. The Yom Kippur War in '73, the Six Day War, all of it. And Israel was just who you rooted for. There was never a question of a doubt. Yitzhak Rabin and Shimon Peres, these were legends. And I don't know how and when the narrative shifted. People just hate Netanyahu so much. Whether you like his politics or not, that doesn't mean you have to hate Israel. And history will tell the story that Netanyahu is probably the greatest ambassador in the history of the world. They hate Trump so much that they can't see straight. And it still makes sense to me. So for me back then, we're going back a long time. The world was a different place. It was easy. They were an easy place to like.
Well, I feel similarly. I grew up in New York City, and I went to temple in New York. I went through, Sunday school, and I was confirmed and all of that. I've always belonged to a temple, whatever time it was. I moved to California, but then, any place that I was, I made sure that I was connected to a temple. And what I'm so passionate about, what I'm so angry about on the one hand, is how American families, American parents, not all of them, Jewish American families, Jewish American parents, again, not all of them, but too many of them have not provided their children with a Jewish education, which included loving Israel. When I was going to Sunday school, Israel, there was no question about it. Loving Israel, it was osmosis. You absorbed it, and there was no question about it. And
That's a whole
today,
other podcast.
yeah, okay, maybe I'll have you back and we'll talk about that because that's what the kids are doing at these college protests and all that. The Jewish students, some of them, because
We
they
lost a
haven't
whole,
been.
yep, we lost a whole generation. Bad
Yes,
parents.
yes. All right. Well, we will talk about that some other time. So, Steve Rosenberg, thank you so much. Give out the website again for Israel Appreciation Day.
IsraelAppreciationDay.com, February 11th. And go to the website, IsraelAppreciationDay.com, has all the information you need.
All right. And thank you
Thank you,
so
Carole.
much. Thank you. And thank you all for listening. You've been listening to Dr. Carol's Couch.